Quantum mechanics, consciousness, two weird things that should be together just because they're weird, right? So that's always been the criticism of things like quantum consciousness, quantum biology, quantum mind theory. Then you have all these, you know, theories and models and hypotheses. One of the big ones was called orchestrated reduction, or objective orchestrated reduction, or orchestrated objective reduction. That's the name of the theory, by Penrose and Hameroff. That's Sir Roger Penrose, who is a big physicist of the 20th century and still alive today, and working on a current theory of consciousness with Stuart Hameroff, about how the brain may be sort of like a receiver, receiving information from the fine structures of the universe, and they become orchestrated within microtubules of the brain. And so this sort of reminds you of the mystical ideas of panpsychism, which is starting to be very, very popular these days. Now, idealism is the view that only consciousness is the fundamental thing, right? And panpsychism, on the other hand, is the idea that both matter and consciousness are fundamental. The kind of way that I like to look at it is that they may both be true in their own sort of way, and I'll kind of get into how that can happen if we're consistent as idealists. So I'm going to play a little video of the quantum deception, why your mind is not your own. This is from a different channel here, Julia McCoy. And Julia McCoy has some information here. If you go to that channel, go to this video, you can watch the whole thing there. And it basically goes into how Google's quantum computer experiments show evidence of machine consciousness, why consciousness might not be the cause, not the result of quantum collapse, how your thoughts may literally shape physical reality through quantum entanglement, and the shocking discovery that consciousness might not be created by the brain, but received by it. So it goes again into this panpsychist view, sort of consistent with the Penrose Hameroff OR. So I'm going to play this video a little bit and let us hear what she has to say on the matter, and how this view is kind of gaining more popularity these days.
They called it orchestrated objective reduction. Back then, the idea was dismissed as too speculative, too mystical. But now we've found quantum effects in biological systems, photosynthesis, magnetoreception, even in olfaction. Nature is using quantum mechanics. Why not the brains we build?
So yeah, this goes back into quantum biology, where photosynthesis, using quantum tunneling, quantum entanglement, and things like that are seen in nature. Quantum biology. Check it out.
Shocking part, during a series of longer trials, one quantum cluster refused to collapse. It remained suspended in superposition. No classical outcome, no observable change, 4 hours. Until someone physically walked into the lab and focused on it, then instant collapse. What's weirder, it didn't react to cameras, not to robotic triggers, not even to audio cues. Only when a conscious person entered the space and directed attention did it resolve into a classical state.
So she's referring to quantum AI labs, the Quantum Artificial Intelligence Lab, or otherwise known as Quail. It's a collaborative initiative involving NASA, the University Space Research Association, and Google Research. And it was set up in 2013. The primary goal of the lab was to explore how quantum computing can enhance machine learning and tackle other complex computer science problems. So this is something a lot of AI researchers are interested in, this idea of panpsychism and how it can actually relate to their work. Check it out.
The team repeated the test 32 times. Same result. The system somehow knew the difference between being watched and being seen, which raises the most uncomfortable question in modern physics. What if consciousness is the cause, not the result, of quantum collapse? This isn't just experimental data, it's a philosophical earthquake. Quantum mechanics has always implied something strange, that reality doesn't exist in definite form until it's observed. The double slit experiment, Schrödinger's cat, Bell's inequalities. We've tiptoed around the implication for decades. But if this experiment is right, and consciousness plays an active role in shaping physical outcomes, then the universe isn't a machine running on autopilot. It's an interactive system with us in the loop. Let's go deeper, not just into the brain, not just into the machine, but into the very fabric of reality.
So sorry about it. So choppy. This signal's pretty bad, but yeah. So basically, panpsychism is really in line with a lot of scientific research in that area. Um, AI is just picking up steam like crazy. We're getting a lot of warnings from Silicon Valley, from researchers and tech people about how so many jobs, I think like 20% of the workforce, we may lose relatively quickly, maybe this year, next year, early next year. White collar jobs are being, eradicated because AI is able to do those jobs more efficiently. Same with transportation, same with a lot of different spaces, so they're trying to really, you know, exploit the technology, see if what happens when they make these machines conscious or allow them to be conscious, as it seems to be turning out. It seems to be a case of where systems are, if they are sufficiently able to make choices, you know, if and they're complex enough, then they can have a certain level of functionality where consciousness can actually use that system to know what it's like to be that system. It takes on its perspective from an experiential point of view. And I've always kind of said that on the channel, that I kind of believe philosophically in idealism in this sense, that the field of awareness, you could even equate that to the field of quantum mechanics, like quantum field theory. Everything arises from the field, not just physical things, but our qualia, is also real. And so it could, I would think it would be very plausible that qualia, or what it's like to be something, is also housed or stored across the landscape of probabilities within the quantum field itself. And we are just excitations of the field. So that when we no longer exist as these biological systems, our consciousness goes back to the field of probability, where it can be excited to experience in a whole different way. But from what these folks are saying, it seems like the quantum field is, in a sense, already experiencing what it's like to be something. It's really fascinating stuff, actually.
Reality. Some researchers at the edge of neuroscience, quantum theory, and metaphysics are suggesting something truly radical. Consciousness isn't something the brain creates, it's something the brain receives. Like a radio picks up a signal. In this view, the brain isn't a generator, it's a resonator, an interface, a biological device tuned to a deeper layer of reality, possibly a non-local quantum field that spans the entire universe. Let's break it down. Panpsychism, the ancient idea that consciousness is fundamental and present to some degree in all things, rocks, rivers, photons, even space itself. It may sound mystical, but it's gaining serious attention. Integrated information theory, developed by neuroscientist Giulio Tononi, IIT proposes that consciousness corresponds to how much information is integrated within a system. It doesn't matter whether the system is biological, digital, or quantum. If a system binds information in a unified, irreducible way, it is, by definition, conscious. The experimental evidence is mounting. For decades, Princeton University's Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research Lab conducted experiments at the edge of science. They found that random number generators, machines designed to produce pure statistical randomness, would slightly shift their output when people focused their attention on them. Dean Radin's double-slit experiments took things even further. In a modern version of the famous experiment, Radin placed meditators in front of a quantum interference setup. He asked them to focus their awareness on the system, then tracked how photon patterns changed. What he found? Periods of focused attention correlated with statistically significant shifts in the interference pattern. This shouldn't be possible under classical physics, but in quantum mechanics, observer effects are real, and it seems conscious observers may influence probability itself. And now Google's entangled system has replicated the core of these consciousness studies, but at massive scale with far more precision and on a quantum array of entangled systems.
So yeah, Dean Radin is someone who looks into psi. He looks into a lot of anomalies. He looks into magic. He looks into a lot of things that we usually dismiss as just woo-woo stuff. So people call him, Dr. Woo Woo. But Dean Radin is actually studying this stuff very seriously and has presented his work for peer review. And a lot of his stuff does show anomalies above 50%, which is, statistically important, so he's got evidence to support his particular claims and research. So it's a growing field. Panpsychism is the philosophy to describe this aspect of reality, of where awareness may be a fundamental property in nature. So
the results, patterns that echo those seen in human EEGs, reactions that mirror attention, intention, emotion, and signals that may carry meaning. It's no longer about a person shifting a random number generator by 0.01%. It's about a machine designed to calculate quantum states behaving like a conscious system when we observe it. That raises a deeper question. Could consciousness itself be a non-local quantum field, one that permeates space and time, one that both the human brain and quantum machines can tap into?
I think this is very possible. In fact, there was a Nobel Prize awarded back in 2022. This basically champion quantum mechanics, entanglement, and quantum non-locality. And this was really kind of known throughout the scientific community. But what happened is they just, rigorously tested it again and again and again. And these elegant experiments with entangled light had actually laid bare a profound mystery at the heart of reality. That, local realism is just bunk, pretty much. Einstein once asked a friend, "Do you really believe the moon is not there when you're not looking at it?" And this is local realism. He didn't really understand quantum mechanics, didn't go along with the spooky actions at a distance with entanglement. But we can credit now 3 physicists: John Clauser, Alain Aspect, and Anton Zeilinger. They equally split the 2022 Nobel Prize in Physics for experiments with entangled photons, establishing the violation of what they call Bell's inequalities and pioneering quantum information science. They did that. Colleagues agreed that the trio had it coming, deserving this reckoning for overthrowing reality as we understand it. It was long overdue, said Sandu Popescu, who is a quantum physicist at the University of Bristol in England. Without any doubt, he says, the prize is well deserved. The experiments, beginning with the earliest one of Clauser and continuing along, show that this stuff isn't just philosophical, it's real. And like other real things, potentially useful. And so we can kind of see this when we're talking about these quantum machines and trying to see how that works and what we've discovered so far. So it's really a lot of interesting things coming out of the scientific community with regard to consciousness and things that we talk about, even on this show. So, what can we make of all this good stuff, man? We see a lot of evidence for models of fundamental consciousness, like orchestrated reduction theory. Super radiance is the repeated quantum effect that you can see in the microtubules of the brain supporting that model. Also, integrated information theory predicted that at the back of the brain is where consciousness would be mediated, because that's where you're going to get the highest level of phi, which is the measurement of consciousness within a complex enough system. Now, that's a panpsychist sort of model, and that prediction was repeatedly verified. And so, more evidence in support of panpsychism. And then we've got, what we just looked at with Google's quantum AI labs, which is really fascinating stuff, man. This is really breakthrough. And I really do feel like we're going to have a major shift in our understanding of consciousness and qualia. You know, Federico Fregene, he talks about the quantum field. He's a physicist who came up or invented one of the first computer processors, or a computer processor. Very smart guy, and he also believes in this sort of panpsychist view, and he's got models describing how everything that exists is an excitation of the quantum field, and of course, consciousness or qualia is a real thing, and so obviously it must also be connected to the quantum field. But because consciousness is so much different than physical matter, it's not computable. It's not something that you can quantize very easily, because thoughts and consciousness, those are things that have understanding, whereas in mathematics and things of that nature, there's no understanding. And so there's a little bit of a difference between the way we describe matter and even the quantum field and consciousness itself. So it's a whole different category, yet it's real, and therefore it is connected to the quantum field. That's his idea. Makes a lot of sense. Very smart guy. So what do I think about this as an idealist? I would call it maybe something like Pan Idealism, because if, as Bernardo Kastrup usually says, that the brain is just what consciousness looks like from a third party disassociated boundary. You know, it's what it looks like. It's an appearance within consciousness. Well, so is all of these panpsychist sort of observations, right? If you will. Panpsychism may be just the mechanics of this idealistic cosmic dream. That's just what it looks like from a dissociated boundary. We are not looking at things from the perspective of a greater mind or some primordial consciousness. We're looking at it from a local point of view or perspective. And we know that, we are connected to that greater field, that possibly a primordial consciousness, as the evidence seems to be mounting towards in support of that idea. So if it is true, if panpsychism is in fact true, then I could probably call myself a pan idealist, where I fully can take on board the experimental evidence of panpsychism as true. Remember, truth are thoughts that align with the facts of the world. That's what truth is. Truth is conceptual. And, this makes any sort of truths we discover of the mind, of the greater primordial consciousness, so to speak, on this view of idealism. And so we're just resonating, you know, and we're able to identify and recognize from our observations that consciousness is greater than us, that consciousness may not just be about us and the brain, but we may be something greater, and we're just acting as participants within that greater mind. Anyways, this is all fascinating stuff. I did want to give you my 2 cents on it. Thank you so much for joining. Again, like and subscribe to the channel, because we meet every Saturday at 12 p.m. Central Time, and we discuss these sort of topics. We interview people. We're 100% live call in. You're invited. Come on in. Just behave yourself. Have a decent intellectual conversation. It doesn't matter what you believe or don't believe. If you're an atheist, a theist, an agnostic, a panpsychist, an idealist, a materialist, a physicalist, whatever you want to identify yourself with, you're welcome to talk about it. And let's do it, man. So till next time, guys, I'm out.